The sister, who I stayed with, called me up and informed me that my husband had you-know-what with my other sister while we were separated. I have a strained relationship with this sister, but I never thought she'd cross that line. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to go over a story titled, I, a 33-year-old female, found that my husband, a 35-year-old male, had you-know-what with my sister during our separation. And big shout out to Joseph for sending me this story. And guys, this story is definitely going to go down as the most screwed up story of the week, maybe even the month. And in a nutshell, just like the title says, this story, this man and his wife, they have issues. They have a separation because of her, and you're going to see in a moment why. And ultimately, he ends up nailing her sister. But you're going to see in this story, guys, the writer, the narrator, the original poster, whatever you want to call, is her. So you're getting her take on how everything went down. Okay, keep that in mind. And essentially, you're going to see here is they're married, and she starts hanging out with this coworker, male coworker. Her husband doesn't like him. He has a good reason not to. And even though he doesn't like him and doesn't like her hanging out with him, she does it anyway. And eventually gets to the point that she does some serious sneaking around, and he finds out. And of course, she makes him out to be the bad guy, and that's where things really go down south. And it's very entertaining here about this whole thing. This is right out of something like daytime TV, where she breaks up with him and all that, and he ends up nailing her sister. And it's this whole roller coaster of ridiculous drama with these two. But at the end of the day, you can see that both of them are a-holes in their own way. However, she started this mess, and you're going to see more about it. And it ain't cool, even if you break up, to be hooking up with your ex's sister. As funny as that is, it ain't cool. A line you don't cross, but it is pretty entertaining nevertheless. So I'm going to get into this, guys. This story is also going to show you about the whole how the gals can blame everything but themselves, and when they find a reason to blame something else for their bad decision making, they'll take it, and you'll see what I'm talking about at the end of the story. So it starts off. She says here, this is again the woman writing this. She says, 2 years ago, my husband and I were having issues. He really doesn't have a whole lot of friends. When we got together, my friends became his friends. I would go out with coworkers after work, and he would get upset. He would get upset when I got home late. One particular guy, Chris, he didn't want me hanging around. Now, Chris was just a really sweet guy, and we got along very well. We went out to lunch together. We hit the bar after work. He was just a great guy to work with. My husband, Dave, just didn't like him and told me he didn't want me around him. I told him he was being silly and controlling. So there you go, guys. Her husband, obviously, she's more of a social butterfly than him. Didn't have a whole lot of friends when they got together. But regardless, see how she's painting the picture here? And now she's hanging out with this dude, her coworker, out to lunch, out for drinks, all that. Unless it's specifically for business, a business meeting, your wife shouldn't be hanging out with one of her male coworkers, any dude at all, okay? You're her number one guy, end of story. And especially if your husband doesn't like this guy, clearly he can sense some things about him, okay? Things that women usually don't notice as well, or they turn a blind eye to. Kind of the same way that women can pick up on things about other women that guys aren't going to pick up on. This guy could see he's trouble and didn't want her hanging out with him, and she should respect that. But she's not. And instead, she's labeling him as controlling, amongst other things, as you can see right here. It gets worse. It says here, things exploded when Chris had an extra ticket to a baseball game for my favorite team and invited me to go. I said yes, but knowing Dave would be angry, I told him I had to work that day. We went to the game and had a great time. Yes, I know I'm wrong for lying to him, and I regret that I did that. Sure. This guy, Chris, just this friend from work, just so happened to have an extra ticket to her favorite team. Bullshit. He did this on purpose, knowing she couldn't say no. And she likes him and found an excuse and went behind the husband's back and lied to him, etc., etc. Okay? But again, you see how she's painting this picture here. When I got home, Dave asked me how was work. I told him it was fine. He got quiet and asked me where I had been. I responded that I was at work. He told me that he was going to ask me one more time where I was, and I better be honest. I told him I wasn't going to play games. He pulled up my location history on Google Timeline showing the baseball stadium and told me to be honest with him. There you go. Sounds like husband has a good reason to check up on her because he knows she's full of crap. And where there's smoke, there's fire. As I expected, it was a big thing. You bet your ass it was a big thing. I was so angry that he stalked me. It was such a violation of my privacy. He didn't see it as controlling. He accused me of having an affair and told me he wanted me to promise not to see Chris again. I told him that he was being ridiculous and told him I wasn't going to do that. He's the bad guy because he was checking up on her, and of course, you're a stalker and all that stuff. Get the hell out of here. He has every reason to check up on her because she's not respecting his boundaries, respecting his wishes, hanging out with this dude, and he can tell. He's a guy. He can sense things about other guys. And of course, I'm not going to stop hanging out with him. This shows you how unimportant her husband is to her. And I have a hard time believing there's other things going on here that she's not neglecting to mention. He slept on the couch that night, and in the morning I told him I wanted a separation. I told him I felt smothered, that I needed him to trust me, and we both needed space. You're not giving him reason to trust you. You're sneaking around behind his back. You're going against his wishes. And notice how quick she is to do the separation. And you're going to see why in a second. I moved out and stayed with my sister, not the one that he hooks up with. I hate to admit it, but I felt relieved. I felt like there was no trust with him, no give, no chance to grow. When Chris found out what happened, he felt horrible. Sure. But I told him it wasn't his fault. I did date Chris for a few months, but we really didn't have the long-term compatibility that I was seeking. It was nice to date again, and I feel very open to new experiences. He just wasn't looking for marriage and kids, which is what I want. Imagine that. So these two that have no romantic interest whatsoever, as she's claiming, just like that she separates. Just like that she's dating him, he's dating her. Imagine that. Guess what? If they were just buddies, if she just saw him as a friend, she wouldn't be obviously dating him and obviously doing a whole lot of things now that it was actually, legal to do that. Right? See what I mean? It's not an accident here. She's completely full of shit, and she's trying to make the husband out to be the bad guy for her actions. Anybody with a brain can put two and two together and see what's going on here. But imagine that. Her lover, Chatter Tyrone, even though she says he's so sweet and nice, ain't interested in having a family and kids because Chatter and Tyrone don't settle down. But don't worry, husband gets some payback. It ain't right, my opinion, but it sure as hell is funny. Last year, when the pandemic hit, my grandfather got COVID. I was a wreck and wound up calling up Dave, who was always very close to him. Dave rushed to be there with me and my family, and he was the guy I married once again. So she go when a crisis hits because she thinks her grandpa's going to die because of COVID, who does she reach out to? The ex-husband or the husband she separated from. After being apart 9 months, we decided to give things another try. Well, that's stupid. I moved back in. We discussed boundaries. I asked if he was with anyone when we were apart. He said he had one partner. This surprised me as he never was much of a dater, but I've been with one person as well. One person, sure. Which I admitted, and we both moved forward. Things actually have been great up until this weekend. The sister I stayed with called me up and informed me that my husband had you-know-what with my other sister while we were separated. I have a strained relationship with this sister, but I never thought she'd cross that line. In a way, guys, these two are almost perfect for each other. Now, it's hilarious that he nailed her sister because she is a total asshole. I think we can all agree here. And definitely not giving us the full story here, right? It's funny. But at the end of the day, we have a code. Just simply wouldn't go there because simply it's going to cause more freaking drama and turmoil and chaos. What this guy should have done was broken up with her at that point. He should have ended the marriage instead of separating and moved on. Or if he had to nail the sister, wait until they're divorced, then he can nail the sister as a final FU to her. I don't know. But while they're still married, he nails your sister. Come on. And of course, isn't this interesting that her other sister knows about this? Which goes to show you, girls can't keep secrets. And this sister wanted to do this and wanted her to find out. to stick it to her. And imagine this, that this gal writing the story who's a total a-hole, her sister has a problem with her and wants to stick it to her. Imagine that. But instead her husband stuck it to her. I confronted my husband, who admitted she was the one person he was with. I just broke down crying, told him he was a terrible human being, and I didn't even want to look at him. He told me to tell him that the person I wasn't Chris, and he agreed that he was a terrible person. I didn't respond, and he just nodded smugly and said, "That's what I thought." See? He knew, and I bet you he knew the whole time when she was hooking up with that Chris dude that it was him. He was right about 100%. She's the one that screwed everything up, but of course he was the bad guy for, stalking her when she was going to the ball game and everything like that, and how quick she ended the relationship. He's trying to make me feel bad because of what happened between me and Chris, but there was nothing between me and Chris, and there never would have been until he blew up and made these accusations. Bullshit. Of course, if there wasn't anything going on, why did she immediately jump into dating him like that? And why did he jump into dating her like that? Bullshit. But we're not done the story yet. You're going to see more as to, well, you'll see. He said, "You were going to do what you did with Chris no matter what you said, and said it was my fault, whether I said something or not. Regardless, he thinks that the two things are equal. He keeps saying you create a no-win situation that I have to live with for the rest of my life, so I return the favor." Wouldn't it be funny if the sister was, I think the sister was A, younger than this woman, and B, probably better looking. I can't be rational about this. Yeah, no shit, honey. Every time I bring it up, I'm shaking with rage at both of them and I'm raising my voice and screaming at him. These two need to break up. Okay, this is just a mess. He hasn't been with my sister in over a year, and we've honestly had a great year together. But I don't even know how to move forward with this. One minute I want to forgive him and move forward, and the next I never want to see him again. He refuses to accept what he did was wrong and says that we were separated and both lived our lives. What do I even do here? I don't think I want a divorce, but I can't stand to look at him right now. These two should, as I joke saying these two are perfect together, the reality is no, they should not be together, okay? And she's the one that ruined things. She's the liar. She's the deceiver. She didn't respect him, his boundaries, all that. And he had every right to react the way he did. And, of course, she went right back with that Chris guy. She screwed it all up. It's her fault. Now, again, and he could go out with other women. He has every right. Now, her own sister, again, in my opinion, that's gone too far. It's funny as hell, and she deserves something happening to her. But still, you can't get back with somebody if you nailed her sister. It's just not going to work. They need to split up. Now, real quick, here's some comments, and I'll get to the final part of the story. And you guys are just going to laugh your ass off and not be surprised at what happens. A few quick comments. One guy says, "I see no innocence from anyone in this situation. And all the times you went out with coworkers, did Dave ever have a problem with anyone other than Chris? Doesn't sound like it to me. You lied to Dave and did exactly what you effing wanted to do. Then you dated Chris right after being separated. See? Him sleeping with your sister was a shit thing to do, but you were separated. I know this still doesn't excuse that in my book, but it was a fact." Another guy says, "So let's start at the beginning. While you were actively married, you chose to spend time with someone your husband didn't care for and openly lied in order to spend time with him at a baseball game. Husband found out you lied to him about where you were and who you're with and was understandably angry. While you were separated, your estranged husband chose to have you-know-what with your sister. Now you're mad because of something that happened while you weren't together. I fail to see one is worse than the other. You, the husband, and the sister all made some serious, pretty terrible life choices." Exactly. Now, quick update to how this thing ends. And let me tell you, well, here we go. She says, "I wanted to update for a couple months now, but this is the first time I felt strong enough to write about this. First, let me get something out of the way. Everyone who doesn't have bipolar disorder, please take one huge step forward. Oops, not so fast. Me. Bipolar? Where's this bipolar thing coming from? Could it be that someone now thinks she's that and therefore excuses her actions?" She says, "A few months ago, I started seeing a psychologist to cope with the state of my marriage. She recognized some things, referred me to a specialist, and I was finally diagnosed as bipolar. It was not a happy moment for me. I felt like my life was over, and I think I cried for 3 days straight. Oh, great. Now she can blame that disorder, or what the psychologist, who she probably gave a big wad of hundreds to diagnose her that. Wasn't my fault that the marriage got screwed up. Wasn't my fault that I disrespected my husband on so many fronts. Oh, no. That was the other me. The other me did that. Let's just say her name is Jessica. That was the other Jessica. Not me. I'm innocent. I love my husband. It was the other Jessica that messed up the marriage. The whole thing about accountability. The only thing we haven't heard about is alcohol involved. Dave was incredible through it. He sat with me, took time away from work, and did so much to make sure I was okay. Smack. If she was a good wife, then okay, be the good husband, but she's not a good wife. And he's buying into this bullshit. He should divorce her. I began seeing a shrink who has helped me tremendously by getting me onto a medication regimen that has changed my life. Oh yes, another 30-something chick on medication. Great. Dave and I are in counseling, and I feel like we're in a great place. It's not perfect, but we're healing. She doesn't need medication to stop her to be a decent person. But this is an excuse. I just do not buy this bullshit at all. And this poor sucker is going along with this. And how are they going to have a relationship, a marriage, after him nailing her sister? That's going to make Christmas and Thanksgiving a little weird, huh? I think that my bipolar has been a huge obstacle. I'm absolutely mortified and ashamed of my behavior. I look at it now and it feels like I'm watching a different person. I hate that I acted that way and nearly ruined my marriage. See? She's taking blame, but on the other her. She's now realizing that she, or the other her, screwed things up. That it wasn't him. But she's not to blame. It's the other her. It's the other Jessica. I'm working to recognize I'm behaving irrationally and try to control my impulses and actions. Irrational. Imagine that. I've never known a gal that was... well, you get my point. As for my sister, we actually reconnected. That was a hard one, you think? I really began to see that as angry as I was with her, the biggest reason our relationship was crap was because of me. I was overly competitive. I put down every choice she ever made, and I really made her feel like she wasn't good enough. So this woman is a total a-hole to everyone. What I tell you, this sister is finding a way to stick it to her. I told her I wanted to talk. We both got a lot of anger out. There was a lot of crying on both sides, and in the end we agreed that we still love each other and we need to work to rebuild our relationship. We had our first Thanksgiving together in years last month, and I felt so good to have her there and see her smile at me again. Yeah, she's smiling and staring daggers at her. This is ridiculous. How can her sister hooking up with her husband, and now they're going to get back together and act like nothing happened? Now, you guys have seen a lot of times that women will fight and carry on. For you relationship guys have had wives and their girlfriends and all, and then they're at each other's throats, and then the next day they're acting like nothing happened. And it's still there. There's still an issue. There's going to be a part 2 to this story. I rewrite my first post at least once a month. At first, it made me angry because, of course, it was the right thing. It was right to do what I did. How dare they judge me? Now I see how outside of myself I was. Bullshit. I hate that person. I don't want to be her anymore. It's weird to see comments and PMs calling you every nasty name in the book, telling you that you're terrible and agreeing with them. I use it to remind myself that I have to be better than that. Dave deserves better, and I deserve better for myself. Thank you for your honesty. So guys, I wasn't kidding that this is the screwed up story of the week. So in other words, you saw how she behaved in the story. The first part was her before she had her bipolar diagnosis, and how he's the big villain here, and how dare he, and nothing was going on, even though we all knew that was bullshit. Part 2, she saw a shrink and got diagnosed, and now she's all completely blameless for her actions, because that was the other her that did that, not her. What a load of shit. But again, guys, perfect example. Now, again, like I said, I think it's hilarious he nailed her sister, hoping that she was hotter than her, and she deserves something to happen to her. I just wouldn't have gone with the family, but hey, that's why I do these stories, because they're hilarious and entertaining and all that. But these two should not be together. They need to break up. He needs to stop being a white knight to rescue her, because guess what? Anytime she's going to act like an a-hole, guess what she's going to do? She's going to blame it on the bipolar. That's what she's going to do. Mark my words. And this guy is only beginning to deal with the amount of drama and shit, because she can always say, I have this, I have that, I was on the medication, I got off the medication, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I know it's a serious disorder, don't get me wrong, but I find it very convenient the timing of it all and how she's now using that to blame the other self. It's not going to go well for this guy. This guy should part ways with her and move on. But we shall see. I'll be looking for an update to this story to see how things are going with old Dave the husband here. So, all right, guys, that was it for tonight. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know. Do you think that she was hooking up with that Chris character before they actually had the separation? I think they were hooking up together, but I'd like to hear your opinion on this and your opinion about the interesting timing of the diagnosis there about the whole bipolar thing. I'd like to hear your opinion on that too. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.